Hey, how's it going? This is James Tripp, and this video is on why specifically I am inviting legendary Antipodean NLP trainer James Tsakalos over to the UK to run his very special, very unique spiral somatics training. Now, as I make this video, it is about 24 hours since I put the information page up. I've already had a bunch of questions come in, and what I would invite you to do is if you have questions about this, please do ask them, because I'm going to do a video with James at some point very soon where we're going to answer your questions in specific detail. Until then, what I want to share with you is my motive for doing this. Why am I bringing James over? Because if you look at the price tag on this, you will clearly see, think about it, we're bringing James over. It's a long training. Clearly, this is not about the profit. So I have my motives for doing this. James has his motives for doing this, which he'll share elsewhere. But I want to tell you why I want James to come here and do this. Now, my first introduction to spiral somatics was probably about 6 or 7 years ago now. A friend of mine, Alan Witten, brought James over to London to just do a 2-day introduction to spiral somatics. At the time, I was doing a lot of street hypnosis and mentalism. So my motivation to go on that, on the intro, was because it looked like it would be something I could use within a mentalism context. It looked like it would be really cool for doing cold readings. If you know what cold reading is, being able to sit down with somebody and tell them a lot about them, just boom, off the bat like that. So that was a useful thing in a mentalism context. That's what drew me to spiral somatics. But what I got from it went way beyond that. And this is just a 2-day introduction. So going back at that point, one of the biggest impacts it had on me, number one, was just being able to see the world radically differently, see people in the world in a way that suddenly made sense. You know, we all walk around in our own separate reality, and sometimes everybody else looks crazy, mad, bad. We cannot make sense of them. Why would they do that? In what way does that make sense? But what spiral somatics immediately gave me was this, oh, right, I get that. I get that. One of the places it really showed up was with my, oddly enough, on my interactions on Facebook, because suddenly there were these people that I was just clashing with that I couldn't understand where they were coming from or what their world was about. But suddenly not only could I see them more clearly, but I could see how they were seeing me. I could make sense of how they were seeing me. So this was all cool stuff that came off the 2-dayer. And one of the big things for me was it made an immediate professional difference in terms of what I was doing street hypnosis wise. That may not sound like it's a professional difference, but given what I'm known for doing, that made a big difference at the time. It gave me the ability to read what I would call micro acts of rebellion in people. I could really read when people were doing things their way and bringing a lot of themselves and their own self-expression to stuff in a way that was running counter to what I wanted to do hypnosis wise. And I was able to not only see that, but know what needed to be done to move people into physiologies of response. I'm not going to say physiologies of compliance because I don't like that frame, but I'll say physiologies of response so they could better engage with the hypnotic process. So that's just some of the stuff that I got from the original 2-dayer, and suffice it to say that whet my appetite. Now, fast forward several years. Now, last year and actually the year before, my family and I upped sticks and set off to spend 9 months traveling around the world, which is what we did. I'm in a very fortunate position. A lot of my clients are on Skype, this kind of thing. So we're able to do this. We're able to go traveling around the world. And one of the things we wanted to do was spend a good chunk of time in Australia because we love Australia. And one of the things that afforded me to do, James was very gracious and said, look, come and sit in on my NLP Master Prac training. I'd love for you to see how I do it. And it was a very gracious invitation, which I gladly accepted. I couldn't do all the modules, but I got to do 4 or 5 of the modules of James's Master Prac training, where he teaches spiral. It's one of the things that he really focuses on across Master Prac. And it gave me the opportunity to get a lot more exposure to it. Now, here's the thing. I was back of room here most of the time and dropping in for some of the exercises when the numbers were off and this kind of thing. So I didn't get to do the full immersion. I just got to sit back of room and absorb what I could absorb from there. And yet, even from that, even from not really doing it, not finishing the training, not even being fully in the training, the spiral somatics really unlocked a lot for me that was of great significance. Now, just before starting to do this, one of the things that had happened for me is I got really locked into a particular worldview that was creating a lot of personal kind of stress for me in many ways. And in spite of everything I know about personal flexibility, everything I know about the map is not the territory, various other things I've done, 3 principles, this kind of thing, I got kind of locked into this reality tunnel that wasn't especially useful. So as soon as I got back into the spiral, or picked up the spiral again and got that freshened up in my system, so to speak, it released that deadlock, and I was able to free myself from the reality tunnel that I'd been stuck in, which was actually orientated around one of the V memes, which is something, if you come on Spiral, you'll learn about. I kind of got stuck in one particular V meme and was seeing the world one particular way, and I was falling for that old trap, how I see it is how it is, in spite of everything that I know. Sometimes, regardless of what we still get caught in not being able to see what we're seeing the world through. So that was immediately a fantastic release for me, and I really enjoyed what I got in terms of the opportunity to immerse myself through some of the exercises I got to do. It's fantastic watching James train. Seriously, I'm a practitioner of things, and I do some training, but James's training is on a whole other level. It really is true art and craft, and it's insane the layers that he puts into his training. But that's aside the point. The point of the matter is I really got to enjoy starting to embody these different worldviews, because this is essentially what Spiral is. This is what Spiral is to me. James will probably give a different description. I can only talk about what Spiral means to me, and I'm not even a full expert or practitioner, but from my experience, what Spiral offers to me is the ability to drop into one of a particular set of templated, if you like, worldviews, reality tunnels, fully embodied, literally shift gears into a radically different way of being in the world. And this is phenomenally useful for a variety of different reasons, because it gives you flexibility of beingness. And this is something I really want to emphasize, flexibility of beingness. You may have heard of the equation be, do, have. I understand it might be related to something called gunas, which are particular energies or manifestations in Hinduism. I'm no expert here, but this idea of be, do, have, this is how we impact upon the world. The world occurs to us in a certain way, and how the world occurs to us, from that, our behaviors and patterns of engagement automatically emerge from outside of consciousness. You may be able to consciously override to a certain degree, but depending upon how things are occurring to you will depend upon the behaviors that automatically emerge. And the behaviors that automatically emerge, what I often call our patterns of engagement, create the results and the outcomes we get in life, i.e. what we get. So this is the sequence. Be, who you are being, dictates what you are doing outside of consciousness on a macro level in terms of big behaviors and physiological, microphysiological stuff. And that in turn leads to, because that is the nexus of engagement with the world, that in turn leads to the results you get, which is having. Now, most systems of influence, they don't teach being, doing, having. They teach doing first. So it's doing in order to have, doing to get. So you get do, have, and then a lot of people operate by a worldview, and this is aside from the spiral bit, but a lot of people operate by the worldview. Well, then I am what I get. I am what I am in terms of what I've built up in my life, in terms of possessions, roles, stories, this kind of thing. So people get this in a strange order of do, have, be, which is skewed. Now, I say it's skewed. There is a lot of value in learning skills, explicit skills and this kind of thing. Now, one of the questions that came up, by the way, which I'm going to let James answer separately, is how is this different from stuff that you learn in regular NLP training? Most of the stuff I've encountered in terms of NLP is doing-based stuff. It is, you get this recipe, you apply it, it's explicit, you know when you're using it, you go, well, if this, then this, and you apply your strategies. Now, if you get really good, it becomes embodied and it becomes second nature, but you learn it at the doing level. Now, spiral somatics is very different, because the whole thing, and this is why people are asking all the time, people have already asked me, will you be videotaping this? No, we will not be videotaping this, because this is not information that you can pick up. This is not something you can just watch. This is an embodiment. And James's craft as a trainer is in structuring how you get this in the body, in the muscle, because it's being. It's a beingness-based approach. And what you're developing through spiral is the ability to be in one of, or in across a range at any given time, or actually you can do one through the other, but this is getting ahead of where I'm at. This is one of the reasons I'm bringing James over, in order to deepen my understanding and my expertise with it. But you're able to literally be in a completely different way of seeing the world and orientating the world, organized by an entirely different value set and an entirely fully embodied way, so that, and this is where it relates to this idea of effortless influence, so that merely by being, the behaviors, the appropriate behaviors to connect with the person that you are looking to influence, even then that's taking it to too much the strategic level, they just naturally emerge and naturally connect. Now, this was fascinating for me whilst being in Australia, and I got to have a lot of fun walking around when I was in Melbourne, walking around when I was in Adelaide, meeting different people. But I didn't really come to appreciate it until after we'd left Australia and moved on to the US. And it's kind of a culture shock at first, because Australian culture and UK culture, they can seem different superficially, but there's a lot of resonance there, and US culture is quite different. But I ended up in Santa Monica and being introduced to a lot of really interesting people, right from sort of people down on the beach, at Muscle Beach, hanging out, working out, that kind of thing on one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum, hanging out with entrepreneurs, serious entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, successful people. I was fortunate enough to have contacts in LA that plugged me into all manner of different spheres of social connection and this kind of thing. So I was having to really toggle between a lot of different types of people, and it was really easy. It was really easy. And it was, the interesting thing was I found I was able to fit in and connect with groups of people that I rather suspect that previously I would have been somewhat kind of intimidated by, put on the back foot, maybe not felt 100% at ease with. But what I found was I was able to very easily and radically shift into these different ways of being, completely non-consciously, by the way. It's not even like in the moment I go, oh, here I need to shift into yellow VMeme, or here I need to shift more into orange VMeme. It's not a conscious strategic thing. It's just because, even from the amount that I'd done, and as I say, when I was doing the master practitioner with James, I was back of room. I wasn't fully in it. I wasn't getting the whole thing. But even the amount that I got enabled me to effortlessly shift in this way. Now, this is of immense value and has continued to be of immense value. Since I've been back from traveling, I am connected with a whole bunch of stuff that I previously wouldn't have been connected with. Lots of things are happening generatively. I'm not saying it's entirely down to spiral somatics, but I do know how significant spiral somatics is in this whole picture for me. And I know, and this is the thing, I know that I'm still brushing the surface with it, because I was back of room at James's training. I wasn't in there all the time with all the exercises. The exercises I was in there, I could tell how powerful they were. I could feel them layering stuff in. So what would have been possible if I'd have been able to do the whole master prac and be able to do all of the exercises? So my motivation for bringing James over, and James is doing this as an 8 day training. This is the bare minimum he will do it for. We've really had to kind of figure out how to do this. There's a lot of space requirement in the rooms. We had to make sure we got a venue that had enough space for people. The requirement for space is 5 square meters per person plus 20 square meters, because there's a lot of movement-based exercises to get this really in the body. So it was challenging to find a venue at the right price. There's getting James over. It's the spread of the course. There's been a lot of logistics involved in this, but I want to do this because I want to do this. I want to. It's purely selfish, by the way. I mean, as you can tell, I want to get this full immersion. I want to get this fully in the body. I've already seen the potential that it has, even at the level of immersion that I've had. I want to go all the way in. And personally for me, I have my own agenda in that I'm going into the training with very specific filters set, because I know exactly where and how I want to be applying this. And I would advocate anybody do the same. Or maybe you just want to come and immerse yourself in it and see what emerges from that. Okay, so I want to just say that, and that's what this means to me. This is what Spiral means to me. And if I was to put it in a capsule, I would say Spiral Somatics is a set of fully embodied, radically different reality tunnels or worldviews that you develop the flexibility to effortlessly toggle into. And I understand at higher levels beyond where I'm at, you can do one through the other and start creating these combinations in very powerful ways. And this is what it means to me. Other people will see it differently. So in a sense, I don't tend to think of it as in an over-influencing way, although the influence emerges and takes care of itself in many ways. It's the ability to radically and powerfully shift in a fully embodied way. This is nothing to do with the intellectual. It's not about intellectual understanding. It's about beingness. And if you understand the be, do, have equation for life, who you are being from that emerges all behaviors. You can try and manage them consciously, but they won't run that way. They will come from outside of consciousness. Those are your patterns of engagement. They in turn create the results that you get. You want to seriously up your flexibility of beingness, and then in turn have the effortless influence that comes with that. I would strongly recommend that you at least consider coming on this training. You at least consider it. Now, if this has piqued your interest and you would like to know more, as I say, if there's a comment section going to be around this video. You may be watching it on YouTube, you may be watching it on the information page, you may be watching it on the Hypnosis Without Trance blog or somewhere else. Please do make use of the comment section. Whatever questions you need to ask to get the clarity to make a grounded decision about whether this is the right training for you. I would love to have you come along. I would love this to be a raging success, obviously, because we are not running this for profit, so it's important that we get people in the room. So please, if you want to come along and do this, make sure you do this. It's highly unlikely that James is coming back anytime soon to do this. So I don't want to put the whole scarcity frame on it. It's not like it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, but it might be. It might be. James has never done this in the Northern Hemisphere before. There are no plans for him to do it again. It may happen, it may not. But if you want to make sure you do this, get on it. Ask the questions you want to ask for when I do the interview with James. And hopefully I'll be meeting you when we do Spiral Somatics in Edinburgh this year.